Welcome back to another episode of Is Fitz Happy? I'm Luke.
And I'm Emma.
And this week we're discussing part 2 of chapter 7, Lessons. And we left off where Dutiful and Fitz had gathered in Verity's tower to start their skill lessons after a little jump forward in time. And they were about to begin. Says we began that day.
Yes. And so this is why I interrupted and corrected you when you said they decide to do the basics, which is what Fitz says they're going to do before this whole sidebar happened about the wit. But they begin by Fitz telling Dutiful to let down all his walls and open himself up. He doesn't explain anything about the skill, nothing about the dangers, nothing about what to avoid, nothing about what could happen. He just says, go ahead and open yourself up to the skill right now. And I think that's crazy because he knows how dangerous it is. He was never taught that you should just open yourself. He was told before being told to open himself that this is a dangerous magic. It's very addictive. You cannot let yourself be influenced by the pull of that magic.
Yeah.
He went into the lessons knowing that. He is just throwing Dutiful to the wilds. He's going, okay, go run with honey on your body through that pack of bears. It'll be great.
So his goal here is to open Dutiful up so Fitz can make contact with the skill and get Dutiful used to feeling that connection with the skill. And the significant barrier here is Fitz then has to reach out. He has to lower his own barriers.
Yes.
Dutiful, easy to do it, right? He's not scared of anything, as you said. He doesn't have all those warnings or all the misadventures that Fitz has had with the skill. So Fitz has to kind of hype himself up to doing this. And as he's thinking of all the dangers around it, he feels the protective barriers even thicken about him. So he has to lower them, manually down. They had been my protection for so long, the reflex was difficult to overcome. It was like looking into bright sunlight and trying to command my eyes not to squint. Slowly, I pushed my walls down until I felt I stood naked before him. There was just the distance of the tabletop to travel. I knew I could reach his thoughts, but still I hesitated. I did not wish to overwhelm him as Verity had me the first time we touched minds. Slowly then, gently. I took a breath and eased toward him. He smiled, his eyes still closed. I hear music. It was a double revelation to me. To this boy, skilling came as easily as being told that he could, and his sensitivity was great, far greater than mine. When I reached out wide all around us, I became aware of Thick's music. It was there, trickling like running water in the back of my mind. It was like the wind outside the window, a thing I had unwittingly trained myself to ignore. Like all the other sorceress of thoughts that float on the ether like fallen leaves on the surface of a woodland stream. Yet as I brushed my mind against Dutiful's, he heard Thick's music clear and sweet, like a minstrel's pure voice standing strong amidst a choir. Thick was indeed strong. So, again, this was an exercise not to have Dutiful skill, technically, but just to be open to it. And so Fitz is a little bit surprised that he can hear other people's skill so clearly initially, and he just wants to reach across, but he does, and Dutiful is much more sensitive than he thought. And as we see in the future scene that we'll talk about, Fitz kind of makes the mistake of bringing to mind all of the skill around them, and Dutiful's like, wait, what? And he turns to it and then gets swept away.
Yeah, I just feel as though Fitz should know better, and he should have at least had one warning. Like, yeah, he goes, you understand this is dangerous at one point in their conversation. But no, he doesn't. He doesn't understand. You haven't told him anything. He doesn't know.
I wonder what Chade and Dutiful did with their instruction.
I am sure Chade had him meditate or something because he couldn't reach out to do it on his own. I don't know. It just... Also, Chade doesn't believe in danger in the skill. He doesn't think it is dangerous. He doesn't think there's anything wrong with it. He thinks Fitz is just being overly cautious. And so I really feel like Dutiful has no idea how dangerous this can be.
Do you think Dutiful is actually much more sensitive than Fitz?
No. I think that a little bit of what Chade has been doing with Dutiful is training and is helping him. It's just easier now that he has actually made contact with the skill through his escapades with Fitz before this, that now he understands what he's looking for, if that makes sense. Like, he has had confirmation of what the skill is. And
Well,
so
what about the music then?
I have a kind of crazy theory about that. I feel like the reason it's so dull and distant to Fitz is what was the word I'm looking for? Is a byproduct of Fitz being skilled to not see thick before. I
Okay.
think the like don't notice me, don't see me or whatever, I think that has happened to Fitz probably more than once. And so I think for that reason he is ignoring that part or not noticing it as much because it has been skilled into him that he doesn't.
Interesting. I was thinking that it was more so Fitz thinks he drops all of his barriers, but he obviously is so protective of his mind that I don't think he even realizes that he still has walls up. And so kind of
That's
blocks himself from the skill, even though he thinks he's reaching out. And
that
so
also
has to
could be
make
true.
himself actively aware of things. It could be true also that Dutiful just is more sensitive and more powerful than Fitz.
I mean, I guess to your point, Verity has made comments that Fitz is so like has so many walls or
Yeah,
something. I mean, not enough because still there are times of passion that get
right.
through, obviously. But I think Verity specifically has made comments before about how
Yeah.
many walls Fitz has put up. And so maybe it is that. Maybe he thinks that he is going naked but he's like just dressed in one layer of clothes instead of 40, you know?
Yeah. Well, he says the prince's talent was as great, for at my grazing touch of skill, he turned his regard toward me, and I was aware of him. So they recognize one another through the bond, and Fitz says that the openness he had to the skill was the same clarity that he offered to his life. I felt both small and dark in his presence, for I myself stood masked and let him behold only that which I could share with him, the single facet of myself that was his teacher. And so they're speaking in the skill now. All the text is italicized
Hmm.
as they're doing that. And Dutiful's asking, like, is the music how you're testing me? It's lovely. And Fitz is like, no, that's something else. And Dutiful is being drawn to the music, saying, like, I think I've heard the tune before, being drawn from his body to look at the music. And Fitz right there is like, okay, Chade's right. We need to teach Thick or get rid of him because it is a danger to teaching Dutiful then if
Right.
he's distracting him or pulling him away from his studies in any sort of way. So Fitz has to explain, like, yeah, it's clear that you are able to skill, and it's proof that you can skill if you hear this music. However, that is from one separate man. That is not me. That is not the skill river that is all around you. he says all of these things as an explanation, and it's bad.
Yeah, you have to learn to ignore those sounds. As for the music, that comes from one stronger in the skill, but for now he too must be ignored. But the music is so lovely. It is, but the music is not skill. And if you let the leaf distract you, you may forget the strength of the river and be swept away by it. Fool that I was, I had called his attention to it. I should have known that his talent outran his control of it.
And this is the same thing that happened to Fitz when he was a kid. He kind of
Yes.
immediately got swept up into the river because of that strong attraction
Yes.
to the skill, and that strong affinity for the skill, the strong talent.
Yeah, well, and that's what I thought too whenever he says that to this boy, skilling came as easily as being told that he could.
Yeah.
Because that's how he was too.
Right.
That's exactly how he started. And I don't remember what it is that pulls him into the skill stream because he is really good at denying himself from getting into the skill stream. And then something with his battle with Galen is why he opens himself up and how Galen
Yeah.
is able to get in there.
I can't remember
But
exactly.
I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember what it is that distracts him. But this is in a way similar, except worse because Dutiful hasn't had months of training and being told, do not follow that.
Before I could intervene, he focused on it, and as quickly as that, he was swept away from me. And so Fitz has some, descriptions of trying to describe to Chade later, of how like you're in a middle of a conversation or a middle of a room with a bunch of conversations and trying to listen to one thing, and you hear a snatch of interesting dialogue from someone else. So you shift attentions, and then it happens again and again and again until you're kind of surrounded, not knowing the original person that you were trying to listen to, the original conversation you were trying to listen to, just hearing all of these snatches of words and phrases, and each of them takes a little piece of who you are away. And it's just confusing, and they're all plucking at you, and he has to dive in after Dutiful to try to save him from this skill river. It's not as bad as some of the other experiences he's had with the skill river, so he's able to hold himself together quite fine.
Yeah. It's really interesting because Fitz does talk about how there's a lot of different things pulling at Dutiful, and he's getting unraveled by each different thing. And the way I understand it, this is not necessarily just people in the keep that are having these moments. It is just, in general, anyone who has a little bit of skill is in this stream.
Yeah, the skill is not distance-based, really.
No. So that's super hard. This is such a hard concept to, like, grasp, and then to try to read it as somebody who also can't, like, speak to what it is well, because it is such a meta concept. It's a little difficult, but Fitz is going around sort of from place to place trying to pick up the pieces he notices of Dutiful and keep them together, but still looking for the heart of Dutiful.
And Dutiful, as he knows it, right? He only knows one facet of Dutiful here. So he's trying to call him and yells out Dutiful, and can feel the attention of all these people who are touching the skill, who have a small ability to skill, and they all focus on him because he rang out. He skilled to everybody in this area.
Yes.
And now they're kind of like focusing on him and kind of tugging at him a little bit more.
He does say is a risk to himself, but the fault was his, so it seemed only fair to take this risk of getting the attention onto himself.
I felt their brief amazement and confusion as they fell away, and then I was centered again as he's shaking these people clinging onto him off. He bellows out Dutiful again, but not his name, his concept of himself, the shape I had so clearly seen when I had first brushed my thoughts against his. What I felt in return from him was like a questioning echo, as if he could barely recall who he had been but moments before.
Right. Also, in leading up to this, Fitz says that the strangest part of all of this is how much clearer his perception is of the people in the skill.
Yeah.
And that maybe Chade was right in not letting him have elf bark. Like, he does feel like this is the clearest it's been in a while. That could also be because he doesn't normally skill to this extent or in this way. Even when he's reaching out with the skill, gazing across the water at the cabin, that's not the same as being in the skill river and waiting.
And
it feels
purposeful.
Yes. So I don't know if
it could be
how
both.
I feel about it. It could be both. Could be both. But yes, he found that echo of Dutiful
and kind of like sieves out threads of Dutiful from other things, and trying, like, repeatedly saying, like, you're dutiful, 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 holding on to that image of the prince, and kind of getting eventually a response of, Tom? The template he offered me was a fractured portion of myself, the single facet I had presented to him. Because again, they aren't saying names, they're saying the concepts of who they are.
Right.
And Fitz only presented himself as one facet, as Tom Badgerlock, the teacher, mentor of the skill.
Right. And I think earlier you said that Fitz only knew one facet of Dutiful. I don't think that's true.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, he knows the whole of Dutiful.
Yep, because he felt him when they touched minds to begin with. Yes. And yes, I confirm for him, yes, Dutiful, and that is enough and more than enough for today. Come away from this now. Come back to yourself. So they separate out a bit here. And as they departed from the skill river, it seemed to me that someone else almost spoke to me in a distant echo of thought. That was well done. But next time be more careful with yourself as well as with him. The message was arrowed at me, a thought with me as its target. I do not think Dutiful was aware of it at all.
And he then goes on to say that I push all consideration of that foreign skilling aside. Who is this?
I think it's chivalry.
I think so too.
It could be Verity, but we've also had thoughts about how Verity is not in the skill river because he's in the stone dragon.
Right.
But also I think that like is contradicted in the final trilogy. I don't remember all of the details, and that kind of theory around all of that is fuzzy. It's only headcanon. But I think this is probably chivalry because he was described by Verity as much more focused. He was much more adept and deft.
And it was like an arrow when he spoke to you.
And Verity was like a freight train.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly why I thought so too. I distinctly remember the arrow analogy being used about chivalry's use of the skill when talking. And I don't know, I think there's something really wholesome about the idea of, even though chivalry is gone, he's still watching over his son in the skill river.
Yeah.
And maybe that was the thing that kept him, the ancient being that helped, but no, because I think it was different.
So. It was a different thing for sure.
I don't know. It's just so odd because they are very different.
And chivalry, I don't like, as strong as he was in the skill, he was not a master, and I don't think he would be strong enough to hold himself separate for a long time, right? I think this is kind of like a strong effort to be like a focused message, if it is chivalry. So I think the being that like helped them push out is a collection of a lot bigger and stronger things.
Okay. And I guess my point to it not being the bigger, stronger being is, or like, I guess I would make a point that it isn't the bigger, stronger being because Fitz has encountered that before.
Yes.
And so he would know.
Correct. Yeah.
But
so they've exited the skill stream now, and Fitz goes around the table to go in front of Dutiful, who is sweating. Dutiful, can you hear me? He gasped in a small breath. Yes, a terrible smile flowed onto his slack face. It was so beautiful. I want to go back, Tom. He's skilling this. No, don't do that. Don't even think about it right now. Stay here and now. Focus on staying in your body. And he looks around. There's nothing to offer him. No water, no wine, no food or anything like that. And he later on resolves to remedy that situation in case this happens again. But he's focused on talking out loud to Dutiful, saying like, you will recover in a bit. Stay here in your body.
Which noticeably is a command. It is commanding him to get away from the skill, stay in your body, which is much different than how he was talking before, where it was sort of like an invitation of, I think this would be a good idea. And now it's so very clearly a command. And I don't know if he's doing it on purpose because he knows this could be backed up by that skill command.
Right.
If he says it this way, but he's definitely like, get away from that. It could also just be that he's super nervous that he will be lost if he continues.
In his own head, he's berating himself of why hadn't I planned for this eventuality, because I had never expected that he could skill so well in his very first lesson. I had not thought he would be adept enough to get himself into trouble. Well, now I knew better. Teaching the prince was going to be more dangerous than I had thought. I set a hand to his shoulder, intending to help him sit up straighter. Instead, it was as if we leapt into one another's minds. I had lowered my walls to teach him, and Dutiful had no walls. The elation of the skill flooded me as our minds met and matched. With him, I could hear the muted roar of skill thoughts like the carousing of a flood river in the distance. Come away from that, I counseled him, and somehow drew him back from that brink. It was unnerving to feel his fascination with it. He talks about how once he also felt that fascination, and still kind of does, but he knows to temper that. And so he draws him back and kind of stands in front of, metaphorically, Dutiful's want for that skill river and kind of can pull him away from it. And Fitz speaks out loud and skills at the same time his name, Dutiful, and then speaks out loud the rest of this. It's time to stop. That is enough for one day and far too much for the first lesson. But I want... His spoken words were little more than a whisper, but I was pleased that he said them out loud.
He's
These
also
are
skilling
Yeah,
them.
he's also skilling. These are also italicized. So he's whispering as well. Enough, I said, and took my hand from his shoulder. He leaned back in his chair with a sigh, rolling his head back. I fought temptations of my own, and Fitz is now thinking like, could I skill share strength to him to help him recover? Like, is there any way I can make this better? Because this was kind of my fault. And he just decides to leave it alone. He's like,
Yeah.
okay, he'll recover. It'll be fine.
Yeah, and I find it interesting that Fitz says, once I too had felt drawn to the great skill current, but I know the dangers now, and so I can temper that. But that's the thing that he's not quite grasping, which frustrates me, because it's like, yeah, obviously he has no way to temper that. You haven't told him about the dangers. And so he's like on the precipice of grasping what the problem is, and yet never acknowledges. I mean, he's like, oh, this is my fault for going too soon, and I should have told him more. But he's not like in depth thinking about the actual problem, which is like he didn't give all of the information before doing a thing.
I think that's where our discussion on his altered mind comes into this, because he doesn't remember being able to skill so easily, doesn't remember being swept away in the river the very first time he touched the skill, because he thinks it's always came erratically. Even later in the next paragraph, he says, yeah, when I had the first opportunity to learn the skill, I had seen it as a double-edged blade. There was great opportunity, but balanced against it was always the danger that Galen the skill master might learn I was witted and destroy me, which is true, so he always had kind of a reticence to it.
Yes.
But also, he says I had never approached the skill as openly and eagerly as Dutiful did. I don't know. I guess technically that's true, but Fitz also jumped into the chance very swiftly at these things. So I think it's that altered mind state that's making him forget that he did leap into it head first, and he doesn't remember that he was able to skill so easily, so he didn't even think it was possible for Dutiful to do this.
I guess, too, there's the chance that some of his memories of the coterie were given to Girl on Dragon, because that would have been a very
True.
painful thing, and he did purge himself of a lot of painful memories. And so potentially this is also why he is so forgetful and doesn't quite grasp. I mean, he knows the danger. He's a skill user of however many years, but he doesn't grasp the importance of letting someone know that in the beginning stages.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, well, I guess maybe he gave those memories away. Or like you said, maybe that's because of that
And
weird.
He quickly brushes past the beginning of his training and quickly moves on in his mind, thinking about what happened afterwards,
Right.
about how pain and using elf bark and stuff made him reluctant to use the skill after Galen's training. But like the
Yes.
Galen's training part is only 2 sentences.
Yes. And the whole I never approached the skills openly, I think he did. You kind of backpedaled and said maybe he didn't because of the wit thing.
He didn't approach it maybe as openly as Dutiful is, because Dutiful is so eager to just do something, right? But I agree that he was much more open than Fitz himself thinks he was.
Because I feel like he was super open, and then he realized that potentially his wit could be in danger, and that's when he started kind of pulling back.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like at first he was very open.
There were secrets that he needed to keep going into it.
Yes.
Specifically like Chade and things like that. So he needed to keep some things back. But I think you're right that like he learned that it's possible for Galen to read his mind and his thoughts through this. So going into it, he was super eager.
But either way, Fitz talks a little bit about how even now, with all of his knowledge, he does still long to plunge back into the intoxicating current that is the skill river, but he cannot let Dutiful see that part of him, because that's not going to help the situation right now.
Right.
So he sort of has to hold that aside and say,
pull yourself together.
Yes, let's go. And then Dutiful's kind of complains, saying, I'm tired. I wish I could sleep the rest of the day.
And Fitz says, do something active, Occupy your body as well. Try not to think about the skill or skill river. Do not do anything without me. Venture there alone, be distracted by it, and you'll be gone to a place from which no one, not even I, can recall you. Yet here your body must remain as a great drooling babe that takes no notice of anything. So now he's lecturing over much because he didn't do it at the beginning
Right.
about the dangers of things, and saying he's cautioning him repeatedly about the dangers of the skill without Fitz, and says, I suppose I lectured over long on this point, for he finally told me, almost angrily, that he too had been there and knew he was lucky to have returned in one piece. I told him I was glad he realized that, and on that note, we parted.
I do feel like that's really interesting because, to me, does he understand how bad it was? Like, I guess Fitz did whenever we saw him unravel. He could feel the,
Yeah.
But this is the second time this has happened to Dutiful. So I don't, it's odd that first time didn't stick. I know that we've talked about how it's probably from the weirdness of traveling through pillars and whatnot.
Being occupied with a different mind, that sort of thing.
So potentially it's because of that. But this isn't the first time, and he is like, I get it. Do you? This is the second time it's happened.
But again, remember the euphoria that people get and the connectedness you get immediately after connecting with the skill, like Wintro walking around with the heightened senses of everything. So this could be fading with time as Fitz is lecturing a long time. And finally at the end, Dutiful can actually realize the danger that he was in.
That's fair.
Could be something like that.
Right. So.
But Dutiful stops before they part.
Yes, because Fitz thinks they're done. He's gotten the point across successfully.
He suddenly looked very awkward. I want to ask you something. I waited, but finally had to say, And what did you want to ask me? He bit his lower lip and turned his gaze to the tower window. About you and Lord Golden, he said at last, and halted again. What about us? I asked impatiently. The morning was wearing on, and I had things to do, such as dampening the headache that now assailed me full force. Do you like working for him? I instantly knew that was not the question he wanted to ask. I wondered what was troubling him. Was he jealous of my friendship with the fool? Did he feel excluded somehow? I made my voice gentle. He has been my friend for a long time. I told you that before, in the inn on our way home. The roles we play now, master and man, are only for convenience. They afford me an excuse to attend occasions where a man such as myself would not be expected. That's all. Then you don't truly serve him. I shrugged a shoulder. Only when it fits my role, or when it pleases me to do a favor for him. We've been friends a long time, Dutiful. There is very little I wouldn't do for him, or he for me. The look on his face told me I had not lain to rest whatever was troubling him, but I was willing at that point to let it go. I could wait until he found words for whatever it was. He seemed also willing to let it rest, for he turned away from me to the door. But with hand on the handle, he spoke again suddenly. Before we get into that part, just as a clarification thing, Dutiful's obviously speaking to the rumors that we have been talking about for the last few chapters.
Yes.
And Fitz doesn't know about those rumors. He knows the origin of the rumors, as we see in the upcoming conversation of the Lord Golden and Civil Brisinga at Galekeep misunderstanding.
Yes.
But Fitz does not know the extent of those rumors right now in Buckkeep, and Dutiful seemingly has heard them and is concerned about what those rumors mean.
Right, and he's trying to be delicate about it. He obviously...
But also is not asking anything outright.
No, and it's really confusing. And
he's 15.
Right, I mean... Yeah. And also poor Fitz, because he has no idea, but he's kind of not dispelling the rumors with his answers. He doesn't know what's being asked. So the way he's saying things can be construed as he is in a relationship with Lord Golden.
So Dutiful is turning away, hand on the handle, but stops himself. His voice was harsh, the words wrung from him against his will. Civil says that Lord Golden likes boys. When I said nothing, he added painfully, for betting. He kept staring at the door. The back of his neck grew scarlet. I suddenly felt very tired. Dutiful, look at me, please. I'm sorry, he said as he turned, but he couldn't quite meet my eyes. I shouldn't have asked. I wished he hadn't. I wished I hadn't discovered that the gossip was widespread enough to have reached his ears. Time to lay to rest. Dutiful. Lord Golden and I do not bed together. In truth, I have never known the man to bed anyone. His actions toward Sybil were a ploy to provoke Lady Brisinga into asking us to leave her hospitality. That was all. But you cannot, of course, let Sybil know that. It remains between you and me. He drew a deep breath and sighed it out. I did not want to think it of you, but you seem so close, and Lord Golden is, of course, a Gemalian, and all know that they care little about such things. I debated for an instant about telling him the truth of that. I decided there was such a thing as burdening him with too much knowledge. It would probably be for the best if you didn't discuss Lord Golden with Sybil. If the topic comes up, turn the conversation. Can you do that? He gave me a crooked smile. I, too, have been Chade's student, he pointed out. And then Fitz also says you've been cooler towards Lord Golden of late. If that's the case, you've been depriving yourself of a true friend. So don't think ill of him for that.
Right. This is so interesting because it's so against how he reacts later and how he feels about this rumor being widespread later. Here, it seems as though Fitz understands immediately, like, oh, of course people are going to think Lord Golden likes men because of the interaction with Sybil, and Sybil is spreading it clearly. And I'm his serving man, duh. But I know that this was all a ruse. This isn't real. I'm fine with it because I know. And there's no need to actually clear up my name or Lord Golden's name, but the Dutiful should know. But then later, when people are running rampant and Lord Golden is playing into this, it really frustrates Fitz. He really feels betrayed by Lord Golden.
I think because that's the key right there. This one is he plays into it is the key. For this example, we've already established that Dutiful trusts and is friends with Sybil, who it directly happened to.
That's fair.
So Fitz is like, oh gosh, of course I have to address this. I guess Dutiful, of course, would know because they're talking, right? And Sybil is not happy with Lord Golden or Tom Badgerlock.
Yeah.
So I'll address this here. Like, it's not happening. It's totally like this was a ploy. It's fine. This is something that we had to do. And later on, when it's discovered, when Fitz finds out, Lord Golden knew the whole time and was playing into it. He even makes a mention of the betrothal ceremony where Lord Golden is talking about how these 6 duchies people and their morality, rules and stuff are so backwater and so strict. It's like nothing like Jamali. Like he's like playing into that kind of thing.
Right.
And I guess I think on one hand he gets why Lord Golden plays into it because it covers his role a little bit more.
Right.
But in Fitz's mind, and probably internalized homophobia and things like that, which is rampant in the 6 duchies apparently, because Dutiful has the same thoughts of like, that is disgusting and I wouldn't want to think it of you.
Right.
It's something that is a betrayal, I think, from Fitz's eyes of like, my friend encouraged this and made me think, or made people think that we were together, even though as 6 duchies, as my society, this is a disgusting act,
Right.
So I think it's like that internalized homophobia with the betrayal. And like, it's, if they were more open and more accepting of different sexualities, it wouldn't be such a betrayal and he could just brush it off of like, he's playing into his thing and it's okay. But like, since it is such a taboo topic, later on, I think that is such a betrayal of like, you are making me seem as if I'm, I don't know, like a degenerate or something.
I guess. Yeah. It just feels like he should be able to understand that Lord Golden ultimately is a role, and so is Tom Badgerlock. But I think maybe part of the problem as well, besides what you said, which I think is really true and important, that there is that added layer of Lord Golden is playing into it.
Yeah.
But I think also Tom Badgerlock in a way is not a different identity than Fitz. That is Fitz.
Yeah.
And so it like is frustrating for Fitz to be.
He lived under that name for 15 years.
Yeah, like that's who he actually genuinely is. And so I think that's probably also where it probably stems from, as we're talking about, especially that internalized homophobia.
We also have to remember that the argument isn't just about those rumors.
Right.
A lot of it is about Amber and Jack.
Yes.
And a woman persona coming out of this person he knew since he was a child, the fool who he trusted, and not dissuading Jack from insinuating that they're in love and together. Right?
Yeah.
It's an added component onto there, where Jack is making these because it's
lewd
Jack.
comments.
Yeah, she's making very lewd comments, and Amber's just like, ah ha ha ha, yeah, we're together. Like, it's not any way dissuading that. So I think that's also where it kind of chimes in. So we'll discuss it when that happens, but it's not just from these rumors. I just want to clarify that, because we're talking about those rumors specifically in here, but there's more dimension to that argument later.
You're right. That's a good call out as well. So, yeah, but it was kind of shocking to me for Dutiful to react saying, I didn't want to believe that, or I didn't want to think that of you about Fitz being potentially gay, which is kind of a crazy response, but maybe that's just a 21st century look.
It could also be wrapped up in the Lord Golden kind of coming on to more of a younger child.
That's true, yeah.
Even though Civil is, I think, a couple years older than Dutiful, so maybe near the age of majority for Six Duchies, but still
right.
I know modern sensibilities again, that's
still
disgusting.
Bad. Yeah,
but
not
for
excusable.
Them, maybe
however.
It's not bad because they talk about how nobles are marrying half their age and stuff like that, and it's totally fine. So maybe it's kind of wrapped up in that too, though, where oh, you're friends with Lord Golden, and Lord Golden did this to Civil, and you're okay with that.
Yeah, that's fair.
Plus these kinds of rumors,
right?
What is kind of your whole morality? Even if it's not just the homophobia, it could be included in so you're okay with his loosey-goosey morality of having different partners, even if you're with him? I don't know. So there could be multiple things into this.
That's true.
With not just homophobia, but polyphobia or open relationship phobia. I don't know. But anyways, yeah, I think it's just, yes, what we talked about before, the Six Duchies sensibilities about that in general, but also I think Dutiful has built up in his mind a picture of who Tom Badgerlock can be to him.
That's true.
And doesn't see himself in any of that. Because remember, he put himself into his shoes when Fitz was telling that he didn't follow Verity on his quest, and Dutiful was disappointed because oh, I can see myself in Tom, I would have done that.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of being a boy being raised in the Six Duchies as it is.
That's fair. But also the comment that Jamalians care little about such things is crazy, because I don't think that's true. Because I mean,
stereotypes.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, maybe, but Bingtown is not.
No, yeah, Bingtown
not very supportive. But that isn't Jamalia.
But every single place that we talk about being, all these other cultures think this is barbaric, and then this culture thinks this is barbaric. It's basically Jamalia starting there, because we don't know much about the south of that.
Yeah.
But Jamalia being the most liberal of those cities and getting more conservative thoughts as they go up.
Yeah.
Bingtown, yes, is not okay in general with that, but it's much more of an active social scene of gay men going on cruises, basically trading cruises together and having secret meetups and stuff. And this Six Duchies, we don't know too much about it.
Well, there was the guy openly hitting on Fitz. So
yes, because he suspected, or quote unquote knew, that Fitz was also a gay man, right? It seems much more secretive, at least from the perspective we're reading, which is Fitz, which is not very secret.
I mean, it's not like he's going to be noticing. He's probably in a gay bar with a gay flag behind him, and he's like, I love rainbows. I don't know. This is not a gay bar.
I went here as a kid.
Yeah, no, for sure. The drag queens, those are nice ladies.
Yeah. So it's not the most reliable narration of the society, but that's how I'm kind of viewing it as they go up, because Six Duchies places such emphasis on man and a woman getting together to survive together to, have kids.
True. However, that is really interesting because we have read the short story of the Piebald Prince and the Willful Princess. And in that time period, which is not that long ago, it is, well, I mean, a couple hundred years. I don't know. Not in grand scheme, not that long ago. It is totally normal for young nobles, especially women, to have same-sex partners so that to keep themselves pure or whatever, quote unquote pure for marriage, but like still enjoy pleasures
for royals.
That's fair. But then you would think even more so Dutiful wouldn't care. But then I also have the question, do we think the Mountain Kingdom also has scruples about it? Because they seem a lot more open and willing to just do whatever.
I don't know. I really don't know.
I don't know either.
Because it's not like talked about a lot, because a lot of the Six Duchy stuff, again, is from Fitz's point of view, and he is not interested in diving into those kinds of
That's true. I do also wonder, I know that we also have no answer for this, but I do also wonder about the Out Islands. I feel like if any of the, like between Mountain people and Out Island people, I feel like Out Islanders would be more open just because they...
Whatever happens on the raiding ships stays on the raiding ships,
it's fine. Who doesn't kiss
Whatever
their homies
at the mother's house?
Yeah, literally. Well, and also like they have such a like high importance on women doing whatever women want to do. Why would they care if two women got together? Two powerful ladies. Hell yeah. Like, and of course men are going to get together. They deserve each other, Like, I just feel like culturally it makes sense that that'd be okay. I don't know. It's such an interesting topic to think on because I really, truly don't think it was something that Robin Hobb put a ton of thought into. She put so much thought into a lot of different things. Yeah. I don't think when she was writing these books, maybe the later books, but definitely not
in like the early 2000s.
Yeah, the 90s to early 2000s. I don't think this was like forefront of her mind of what's the gay scene like at Buckkeep, genuinely. And it is kind of hard to talk about the topic because I don't want it to seem like we agree with homophobic rhetoric.
Right.
I mean, I don't think anybody would believe that of us, but just in case, I do want to like make it abundantly clear when we talk about it in this context, we're trying to bring up why they would think that way, not necessarily condoning it.
Right. Yeah, we're trying to put ourselves in the mindset of the plot and the setting itself, not just from the year 2026.
Yes. So, just feel like I need to put that out there just in case. But I feel like most of our listeners understand that we're pretty accepting here on this podcast. I would hope that that is the vibe we give off. But either way.
Yeah. Dutiful is done with the lesson and exits down. He's going to tell people that that's his new meditation spot, basically, so they can meet up there.
And Fitz is talking about all the stuff that he needs to put in the room now that that has just happened. Like he needs to make sure that there's food there and also a bottle of brandy in case Dutiful needs restoration, which I thought was a really
nip of brandy. Yeah.
Odd. Because like, what do you mean? Why are we getting drunk at 9 a.m.? Like, I guess brunch, Fitz started brunch at Buckkeep. Start the rumor.
So now we have the Robin Hobb like time travel in the chapters here. He's talking about how tired he is because he arrived at Buckkeep only last night and spoke to Chade a great deal and reported to Chade pretty much the whole night after he got here. And so we go through that conversation kind of going back before this lesson now.
Yes. So he talks a little bit about how once he arrived back, there was a young ferret named Gilly who is now residing in the secret room.
His opinion of me was that I was a creature too big to eat that shared his territory.
Which is very funny. Yeah. The ferrets are so funny to me. I don't know. They're great.
Yeah. Chade catches him up on some gossip that's going around.
And Fitz seems less than pleased. He's like, this is boring. I don't care.
I don't know if he thinks it's boring, but
I get the vibe from the read that he's kind of like, why should I care about half of these problems? And I think it's Chade's way of making sure that Fitz has information he needs for later, but I don't think that Fitz is understanding it that way.
Right.
I think he's seeing it as a conversation.
Fitz does say, like, after a couple examples that are, kind of trivial or somewhat interesting, he then says Chade spoke of a dozen some other boring and wearisome issues. And yeah, as you said, I think Chade is kind of prepping him on the whole state of the kingdom.
Yes.
Because he's kind of looking at him as either a successor or somewhat of an equal right now,
Yeah.
who needs to know the state of things in order to teach the prince properly.
Right.
And so Fitz is like, oh man, they do a lot of other stuff rather than the stuff that I'm involved in.
Yeah.
And said as much to Chade. And Chade's like, yeah, that's why we're so grateful that you're here. So you can just focus on the prince so we don't have to do that.
Yeah. Like, it's a lot. But also, like, he asked to be informed about stuff like this.
Yeah,
and he
yeah.
does need this information, which he doesn't acknowledge in this passage, which is kind of funny to me.
I think he's just really tired.
That's fair. But it is, I mean, to be fair, it's like the Duke of Tillith was arming runaway Chalcedean slaves and teaching them military tactics. And Kettricken was called to mediate between Lord Carlson of Ashlake, who claimed that Lord Dignity of Timberley had seduced and stolen his daughter, but Lord Dignity countered the girl had come to him of her own will, and they were now married, so any issue of seduction no longer mattered.
And then there was like merchants and docks.
Yes, there was a new dock, and it had been decided.
It should be a town council thing, but now it's in front of the queen. Like, just a bunch of mundane stuff.
Yes. And that's before the boring and wearisome issues.
Right. So, yeah, Chade's like, we're grateful that you're here. The only way it would be better, Kettricken thinks, is if you were open and could walk by Dutiful's side all the time. But Chade expresses his own opinion that it's still nice that we have someone secret here.
Right, because then he can more readily observe the prince and people around the prince without people trying to hide their intentions from Fitz as well as the prince.
Exactly.
And I think that is true. I do wonder if Chade would not have had this opinion if Fitz would have had to come forward. Like, if Chade believed that Fitz would do more good to the throne in the open, would he have been able to stay a secret for as long as he has? Do you think Chade is taking into Fitz's opinion into his own account of what should happen, or do you think this is genuinely what he thinks is best?
I think a little bit of both. I think Chade could make it work the other way, but I think he likes having both. You know, I think he definitely likes having someone who can spy with him and who doesn't need to be pulled in every which direction with different noble things and could like actually drop stuff and help him out at the drop of a hat, you know. Their conversation moves to the wit and the piebalds. There's no new stirrings from the piebalds. Fitz asks about Laurel's warning, and Chade's like, oh, you heard about that, huh?
So now he has to tell about the actual stuff he knows about the wit. He was gonna leave Fitz out, which is crazy.
They're training a new huntsman. Laurel is training a new huntsman who is very good with a weapon and follows her almost everywhere. So Chade's fairly well confident that she is protected to the best of their abilities subtly at the moment. And obviously, Chade says they are aware of the piebalds and the old blood are at odds. And his attitude is basically, if they're going to attack each other, let them do that. And Fitz is a little bit, obviously, upset at this. And Chade's like, don't crucify me for that. I need concrete evidence. I need someone from the old blood to step out and accuse someone else before I can do anything.
Right.
We can't do anything.
Which I should mention is because he has said that there are definitely reports of people being killed in their own homes and
houses
fired,
burned to destroy all of that sign.
But no one's coming forward to say what it's about or accusing anyone. And also, Chade very notably has given orders to the guards at the gate to be more suspicious of strangers, especially if animals accompany them.
Yes.
And I made note of that because I think it's not the best call to have made in this political climate. Right. I feel like, yes, obviously the piebalds are a big concern and you don't want them harming anybody. However, that isn't necessarily giving the look that the queen is okay with witted people.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's like, oh, if there's a person with an animal, profile them. Like, no, I don't know. But I get it. It's just not, I don't think it's the best decision they could have made.
He then turns the talk to other things, how Civil is still at court and still daily seeing Dutiful, but there's no overt signs of being a traitor or a plotter, so Fitz is kind of relieved that Chade also has other spies and information gatherers set on Civil while he was gone. And Dutiful and Eliania's formal courtship continued under watchful eyes of all. During Harvest Fest, things seem to go well, and at the surface, the betrothal seems like it's great. You know, they're poised, everything's great, except Chade is pretty sure that personally between the two of them, it's not so good. But hopefully they can get through it, and relations will stay good when the Islanders depart.
Yes, and as for the dukes that were sort of worried about this union, the queen has sort of smoothed those ruffled feathers by giving the Duke of Burns, who was the most outspokenly against it, permission to be the Six Duchies' exclusive trading port for furs, ivory, and oil in Seal Bay, which is a Burns duchy area. And then also talking about how other duchies can be in charge of other goods that are going to be shipped out.
Buckkeep Town would be the inland duchy's port, basically, the wines, brandy, and grain. Then Chokes and Ripon would claim the bulk of the trade in wool, cotton, leather, and such. So basically the throne dispensed licenses for different duchies to have different exports, and they have to come from those areas. And Fitz is like, are they going to respect those licenses? And Chade's like, of course not. No, of course not.
No, they're going to smuggle.
Smuggling is great. It happens all the time. However, it gives the dukes something to growl at each other about instead
gives them
of
each
just
their own bone to growl over.
Exactly. Instead of just kind of complaining about the overall, partnering with the Islanders in general. And it shows them that things can be profitable with this partnership.
Yeah. It is really interesting to me that Chade is so loosey-goosey about legality. He's like, I don't care if people smuggle. Who cares? As long as it doesn't hurt the crown, he does not care.
I think it's also more of like we can't really do much to stop it. So it's just going to happen.
I mean, he probably gets his best information from smugglers. I'm sure he wants to keep them happy.
And then also he remembers something that he had kept for Fitz. He brought out a small figurine from the beach. She dangled from her chain, small and perfect. Her sleek black hair was crowned with a blue ornament. I found this on a rag of piles in the corner. Is it yours? No, but that pile of rags. I said rag of piles.
Yes, you did.
That rag of piles.
That rag of piles. I thought of correcting you and just let it happen.
I found this on a pile of rags in the corner. Is it yours? No, but the pile of rags was probably my old work clothes. The necklace belongs to the prince. Chade frowns in puzzlement, and Fitz adds, I told you about it. The time we spent on that strange beach. He picked it up there. I ended up putting it in his purse for him. I should give it back to him. Chade had scowled then. When he told me his tale of his adventures, he had little to say about the journey through the skill pillars or his time on the beach. He certainly never mentioned this. Fitz explains that he wasn't trying to deceive you. It's disorienting for an experienced skill user to go through the pillars, and he did that, and then he went through 3 more times near the end. So, it's not anything to be surprised at if he can't recall all the memories properly.
Also, he was being forced through without knowing anything. I also want to, before we go on to the next part, talk about how Chade doesn't remember being told this information.
Yeah.
Again, I know I keep saying this, but I feel like
another
it's
little hint of just
a little something.
Yeah.
And also he's sort of taking it as, oh, well, clearly the prince kept it from me, but we never go back to the fact that Fitz was the one who told him.
Yeah.
It's just
he also probably got a report from Dutiful as well.
Yes, but I mean, I don't know. Yeah. It just nobody's going to focus on the fact that he didn't remember Fitz's report. But yeah, so Fitz says, it's very complicated to go through the skill pillars. He is not keeping it from you. This is not a dishonesty on the prince's part. He
says, I'm just glad he is sane. Most of Regal's young skill users did not fare so well. A frown furrowed his brow. So, an inexperienced skill user cannot pass through a pillar on his own? I don't know. The first time I went through one, it was purely accidental on my part, but I had spent that whole day in a sort of skill stupor on an Elderling road. Chade, what are you thinking? His quizzical look was too innocent. Chade, stay away from those pillars. They are dangerous. Perhaps more dangerous to you, who may have traces of skill magic in your blood, than to regular folk. What are you afraid of? He asked me quietly. That I might discover that I possessed an aptitude for the skill. That perhaps if I had been taught as a boy, I too could wield it now? Perhaps you could, but what I fear is that you will read some cracked and dusty old scroll and risk yourself in some experiment just when the Six Duchies needs you most. And that is the beginning of a very big argument that Chade has, right?
Yes.
He feels like he is owed the skill because he is a Farseer.
Yes.
He has this own chip on his shoulder about it, and he really feels like people are not wanting him to learn his birthright.
Yeah, it's definitely his own blind spot because he cannot accept that maybe there are dangers to this magic. He genuinely, I don't know if he doesn't care or if he doesn't want to accept that that's true, but he takes everything as, oh, so you just don't want me to have the skill.
Right. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think there's some weird, complicated feelings from Fitz that he has expressed to Chade in the past about Chade shouldn't be allowed to read the skill scrolls. I mean, we had a whole conversation about that weirdness.
Right.
There is definitely some weirdness on Fitz's end about Chade and skill. However, I do genuinely believe this time it is hey, this is really dangerous. And Chade's yeah, whatever.
He drops it for now, though. We get more into that way later. But for now, he drops it.
And I don't know. I'm really conflicted because ultimately, Chade's curiosity and want to learn do progress skill knowledge forward to a level that it would not have otherwise gotten.
And he doesn't technically have any dangers from the skill until much later when he's 110 anyways.
Yes.
He does use thick quite a bit.
Yes.
Which also doesn't seem to harm thick, but it's also not very moral.
But I think in general, it's another one of those moral gray areas because there's a lot of layers to it, and obviously it is dangerous, but somebody kind of has to suffer through danger to get the innovation kind of vibe.
Yeah. And that's what Chade's kind of all about.
And that's how Chade feels.
Yeah.
That's his rhetoric in general. So
yeah. But as I mentioned, Chade drops it and moves on and passes a small scroll from the mantle to Fitz. Fitz recognizes Kettrikin's squared hand. She had never been accustomed to the flowing script we used in the Six Duchies. 12 careful runes were inked there, and by each one was a single word. Harbor, beach, glacier, cave, mountain, mother house, hunter, warrior, fisher, all-mother, smith, weaver. It's from some game she was playing with Peter. I see why she sent you this, do you? Nice little Chade mentor question of hey, do you make the connection? And Fitz says, yeah, they look similar to the runes in the skill pillars. They're not identical, but they look as if they might be from the same system of writing. Very good, but one, at least, is almost identical. Here, these are the runes that marked the pillar that you and the prince used, the one near the old mounds. Chade brought out another scroll that was obviously the work of a true scribe because it was perfectly annotated, perfectly recreated, had markings of where these runes were on the sides of the pillars and which way they faced.
Yeah.
It was a full annotated diagram.
Yes, would love to see it myself, personally.
Which one took you to the beach? Chade asked me. This one. It was similar to the one for beach on Kettrikin's scroll, save an extra tail or two. And did an identical one bring you back? I frowned. I had little time to note the appearance of the one that brought me back. I see you've been busy in my absence. And Chade's yeah, there's a lot of these throughout the Six Duchies.
Yeah, and we want to know what they do.
Yep.
I do want to point out that it is a little bit crazy that the Elderling beach is noted as a beach on the skill pillar.
Yeah.
Because it is in the water and clearly part of a town that went underwater at some point. I mean, it could have been a coastal town on the beach. I think it is.
It has to be a coastal town because it was a cocooning ground.
Yes.
Remember?
Yeah. No, it's not cocooning. It's where they lay the eggs.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
So, yeah. The
You're right. Yeah, because the others had to hatch there.
Yes. So in a way, it would have had to be a beach no matter what, but
Well,
it is.
No, because if others had to hatch there, it had to be the cocooning ground because the serpents turn into dragons, and if they're around humans too much, they become the abominations. So it
Well,
has to be the cocooning grounds.
no, it's where the eggs are laid and then they hatch and go into the water as serpents. And the dragons who have had too much contact with humans hatch the others. They don't turn into serpents, they turn into others.
Okay. I thought it was the other way around. The other way around.
No.
Okay.
I mean,
but either way, it had to be on the coast.
Yes.
Because either way, either the serpents are swimming up onto the shore or they're swimming out into the water.
Yes.
So before the cataclysm, it had to be a full coast there. Or maybe in a bigger island.
Could have been a coastal island. I mean, or like a coastal city. But I just find it really interesting that it's still a beach. It's still labeled as the beach.
Right. So Chade acknowledges, there's a lot of other skill pillars. And also we might have a chance to reclaim the knowledge of how to move between these. And Fitz again is like, there's a ton of danger in this. Remember, some of them are fallen over. What if they were broken? I don't know what would happen basically if you went through that. And Chade's like, well, I thought you would see the exit was blocked and then just turn around. And Fitz is like, no.
This isn't a doorway.
Yeah, it's a trap door that you fall through basically.
Yes.
And Chade's like, oh.
And they gotta be.
Just shows like another period or thing of ignorance that he has about the skill. He just doesn't know how they work. So he has to kind of reconfigure a little bit, but he's still intent on rediscovering and using this fast travel.
But it's also really annoying because, again, I mean, I love Chade a lot, but this being his blind spot is really annoying because Fitz is like, hey, this is dangerous. And he's like, no, it isn't. It's like a doorway. And Fitz is like, I've literally used them. No, it's not. And he goes, ugh, I guess.
Well, then their use will have to be investigated much more carefully.
Like, girl, what? Why don't we just listen to Fitz on this one? But also, I am frustrated because I know that later Chade has the solos that don't become coteries from Nettle go off and test these different locations to see what happens to them. So while we said not a ton of bad stuff doesn't really happen to Chade himself, he does still risk the lives of others to do experiments on something he knows is dangerous and doesn't accept as dangerous.
Although Nettle as skill mistress, I think does okay those missions because they volunteer and stuff. Because I think Nettle has arguments with Fitz over stuff.
Yeah, that's fair.
But Chade is all about kind of recapturing and reclaiming what other skill users did in the past. And Fitz says, I am not at all certain that those pillars were the work of skill users. Perhaps some have used them, but each time I've passed through one, the disorientation and I groped for words, foreignness, I hazarded at the last. The foreignness makes me wonder if skill users are the ones who built them, if they were built by humans at all. Elderlings? He had suggested after a moment. I don't know, I had replied.
Do you think that the foreign, quote unquote, foreignness that Fitz feels in the pillars is because this is Elderling make or a different reason?
I really don't know. It's really hard to say. I kind of think it might be, the pillars might be Elderling make anyways. I mean, they are, but I don't know if that's the foreignness he feels.
I'm wondering if it's just because a little bit of the traces of the people who used to use it are left behind, and that was thousands of years ago.
Could be.
There is something different about that. I also wonder if it's because he's not using them correctly.
That's true, because I think we get a little epigraph on him later. It's basically like, hey, use one at great risk, and then you have to wait a full 24 hours before you use one again, if not longer.
Yeah, and you're not supposed to go both ways in them.
Yeah,
it's a whole thing. So, like, yeah, it could be because these are Elderling make and there's something about the Elderlings left on there or whatever. Also could be he's not doing it the right way. So there's that.
But he's thinking about that as he's up in Verity's tower still. And he looks at the rack of scrolls there, wondering if the answers of that conversation might be in some of those scrolls. So he looks through them. And I have this highlighted because somebody messaged in about different languages, about the skill scrolls, and how we were talking about how language evolves and maybe skill users in different countries and things like that. And he specifically says, I'd start with the ones, meaning the scrolls, in letters and languages that I knew well. So I wanted to highlight that because maybe it does indicate that multiple languages are involved in these skill scrolls and that maybe they are from different countries and accumulated and brought in
Yeah.
different cultures. But then he says, I found none by Solicity, which struck me as odd. Certainly our last skill mistress must have committed something of her wisdom to paper. It was generally assumed that one who achieved master status would have something unique to pass on to their followers. But if Solicity had ever written anything, it was not amongst these scrolls. The 3 I finally chose were by someone named Trini, and were labeled as a translation of an older manuscript by Skillmaster Auclef. The translations had been done at the behest of Skillmaster Barley. I had never heard of any of them.
So that is the translation that is, or a portion of one of these skill scrolls is used at the beginning as the epigraph of this chapter. And I said before that I think this chapter is a really good example of proof that this is Fitz writing down his story for others to read. And I think this sort of lends to that proof because we know for a fact that he had these skill scrolls
And was going to translate. Or transcribe them.
Yes, or even just read them.
Yeah.
And so the fact that that is then used at the beginning of this chapter, it is something he would have seen and had use of and decided to put in on this. I think it's crazy then that he potentially is picking his own writings and labeling it Tom Badgerlocks, but that is the title. That's where he's getting it from. So I guess.
But it's also interesting that Solicity doesn't have any writings here because those would be in the most recognizable Six Duchies language and the most readable scrolls that they have. So those would be sold first for a premium, probably.
Right. Well, I do wonder, again, I think that Galen and Regal in general are pretty forward thinking. And I think worst case scenario, something's going to happen to Galen. He's not able to protect the scrolls, or something happens and Regal can't protect them either. I think they're not going to want to have any information on the Elderlings and what the skill dragons and making how to make a skill dragon and what you need and what that process looks like.
Yeah.
Which may or may not have been written by Solicity. Maybe that's something that they sold without even knowing it would be important. But I feel like because Verity is so insistent on we need to go talk to the Elderlings pretty early on, that's something they're selling immediately, so he can never, ever get his hands on it.
Fair. Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, Fitz wants to go to bed, but he also can't keep these scrolls in his own chamber as Tom Badgerlock, so he has to go to Chade's tower room first. But on the way, he stops and spies in on Civil just to see what he's doing, and he sees that the room is empty, so the story's lining up with what Civil's going to do later this afternoon, go riding with Dutiful, and reflects that he's a very boring person to spy on.
Yes, he doesn't do a whole lot. When he was in his chambers, his most common diversion was playing a small pipe badly or indulging in smoke and staring out the window afterward. That's kind of harsh, Fitz.
In all the spying I'd ever done, Civil was the most boring subject I'd ever had.
There's a lot going on in his life. You don't know.
He doesn't know. But he heads up to Chade's tower room and listens and hears some movement and things inside, so he knows Thick is there, and tries to warn him in the skill first before barging in so as not to scare Thick. Please don't be startled. I'm coming into the room. It didn't help. Almost as soon as I got through the door, the wave hit me. Don't see me, stink dog. Don't hurt me. Go away. But my walls were up and I was braced. Stop that, Thick. By now you should know that it doesn't work on me, and that I have no intention of hurting you. Why are you so afraid of me? I set the scrolls down on the work table. Thick had stood to meet me. At his feet was a hod of firewood. Half had been loaded into the box by the hearth. He squinted his sleepy-looking eyes at me. Not afraid, I just don't like you. Fitz notes that even though there's like a childlike quality to some of him, he recognizes that he is not a child and will not speak to him like one.
Right. Which I think is good of him.
Yeah.
Good choice. But yeah, so Fitz then says, why don't you like me? Basically.
I haven't given you any reason.
Yeah, like I didn't do anything to you. And Thick is like, you make me have to do more work. Duh.
Water for baths, bring up the food, take away the dishes, a lot more work than the old man only. Well, I can't deny that. I hesitated, then asked, what would make it fair? Fair? He squinted at me suspiciously. Very cautiously, I lowered my guard and tried to sense what he was feeling. I needn't have bothered. It was obvious. All his life he had been mocked and teased. He was sure this was more of it. I could give you money for the things you do for me. Money? Coins. I had a few loose in my pouch. I lifted it and jingled it at him. No! No coins. I don't want coins. He hit Thick. Take the coins. Hit Thick. Take the coins. As he repeated himself, he mimed the motion, swinging a meaty fist on his short arm. Who does? He narrowed his eyes at me and then shook his head stubbornly. Someone. You don't know. I didn't tell no one. Hit Thick, take the coins. His breath was beginning to come more quickly. So Fitz tries to break through that, saying, like, who hits you? Hit Thick, take the coins. And Fitz is trying to calm Thick down because he keeps hitting himself in his arm, remembering this, getting more angry.
Yes.
And so he approaches Thick and puts his hand on his shoulders, intending to calm him so I could speak to him. Instead, he yelled loud, a wild, wordless cry, and sprang back from me. At the same moment, don't see me, don't hurt me, in the skill. Thick, don't hurt me, I retorted. Then, catching my breath, I added, that doesn't always work, does it? Some people don't feel you push them away with that. But there are other ways that I could stop them. And so he's thinking, okay, some of his fellow servants are bullying Thick, beating him up and taking his money that he earns. Or maybe they're immune to his skill touch or sense it enough to be angry by it but not bothered by it.
Right.
So that's also an interesting thing because as strong as he is, there are some people that could be immune to that and he should tell Chade.
Right. And I think that's also important is that Fitz in that says he assumed that because Thick was so strong, no one would be immune. And that's really interesting because up until this point, there have been talks about how some people just don't feel the skill. And so this implies that Fitz thought before now that that's just because he or whoever else was in there were not strong enough in the skill to reach them.
There are some exceptions, though, like Byrrc, who was specifically sealed to the skill,
Yes.
except for somebody who had a passcode, which
Yes.
would be Chivalry, who died. So I think Fitz was thinking that it was a specific thing that had to be done to you in order to seal you from the skill, and you would do that with the skill. So if you were strong enough, you should be able to reach anybody except who is potentially or purposefully walled out.
Okay. But this kind of proves that is not true.
Mm-hmm. I can make them stop, Thick. I will make them stop. What? Stop what? Stop Thick? No, the others. I will make them stop hitting Thick and taking his coins. Humph. He blew out his breath in a disbelieving snort. He said, get a sweet, but then he took the coins. Hit Thick, take the coin. Thick. It was hard to break in past his fixation. Listen to me. If I make them stop hitting you, if I make them not take your sweets, will you stop hating me? He stood, saying nothing but scowling. I decided that the two ideas were not connecting. I made it simpler. Thick, I can make them stop bothering you. He made his humph again. Then, you don't know. I didn't tell you. He dumped the rest of the firewood from his hot willy-nilly into the box and stumped off. And when he's gone, Fitz, already having a headache from skilling with Dutiful is now blasted with a headache, and he is so tired, so he just lays down for a little bit and falls asleep instantly.
Yes.
But I want to talk about Thick here because it's an insight as rereaders into what is happening with his spying.
Yes.
And since it's been so long, I don't remember the exact details, but I believe one of the leaders of the Piebalds is giving him money for spying.
Yes.
And then when he leaves, another of the Piebalds is taking that.
I believe that is true, yes.
So I think that is what is happening. And he's scared of the person who is taking the money.
Right, because
and
he's
likes
threatening
the person
him.
who is giving him the money.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a conflict later as well. But yeah, so there's I didn't tell you nothing because he's been warned not to tell anybody, right? So it's, him confirming like, I didn't tell you anything.
Right.
I'm just saying what happened to me. I didn't tell you.
Yes.
In his own way there. So very interesting scene with Thick.
Yes, it is. Yeah, and that's the end of the chapter.
Mm-hmm. It's a pretty fun chapter, actually. I like it.
It is. There's a lot. I feel like I feel bad. I always feel like I go on too many tangents during these, but there was a lot to deep dive into about previous books and more. So
yeah,
lots to discuss.
Fun episode here. So thanks for hanging with us the whole time.
Yeah.
If you have thoughts on the chapter, please let us know. Or thoughts on what we've said, please let us know. isfitshappy@gmail.com is our email. You can reach us directly on that. Or you can comment or message on any of our social medias at isfitshappy. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, YouTube, and Reddit. So reach out to us on there. Or you can leave a review on any of the platforms, basically, that let you leave reviews, because we're on all of them, I think.
Pretty sure.
Also, if there's a platform that we're not on, I haven't asked this in a while, and you usually listen to podcasts on that and want us there, please let us know. I think we're distributed everywhere, but just let me know if there's not. So, thank you very much.
See you next week.